Welcome to the video demo series for Configure.IT. Unleash the hassle-free way to build bug-free mobile apps in the quickest possible turnaround time. So in this video, we're going to continue our picker control project where we were using the Google Places API. And we're going to use these pickers as the input parameters for that Google Places API. So to get started, the first thing we need to do is add some additional buttons. And these buttons will be used to redirect to the table screen and call the additional APIs. So the way we do that is we'll just come over here to the control list. We'll drag over a button. And let's go ahead and set the coordinates. So this first button, we're going to go ahead and set it at 10. The Y position at 240, the width at 300, and the height we'll go ahead and leave it at 44. For the name, we'll just go ahead and scroll down to the bottom here, and for the title we're going to name it Search by Distance. Now we need to go ahead and set the actions for the button, and we're going to click on the Actions tab, and we're going to click on the Click tab. So the first thing we want to do when the user clicks the button is to go ahead and get their GPS location. So what we want to do is click on Select Actions, and we're going to type in Start and Start Location. So what Start Location does is when it's fired, it will go ahead and get the user's latitude and longitude if it's available. So now that we have the user's location, we want to go ahead and add one additional session variable that we're going to use in the next screen. And so we do that by clicking Add Action. And we're going to save, and we're just going to save it temporarily. And we can leave it as static, and we want this to be search is what we're going to title this session variable. And then the source value we're going to leave as distance. And basically this means that from the first screen, the user chose to search by distance, because on the table screen that we're going to do in just a minute, there's actually going to be two different API calls. So now that that's done, we can go ahead and click Save. Now you can see we have two additional actions that we can choose from: Location Updated and Location Error. Now that we have the location, then we can go ahead and click Location Updated, and we can go ahead and redirect them to the table screen. So we'll select Table and click Save. Now, location error would be if the user has their GPS turned off or it can't find their GPS for whatever reason, then you would put some sort of action in here. Maybe it's an alert that says something like, hey, we can't get your GPS location, try again, or something like that. But we're going to skip that for right now. So we have the first button here to select by distance, which would be a combination of select category and select distance in meters. So now we want a second button that will be a combination of select category and select city and state. We can go ahead and position our second button, and we're going to do 10. The Y position will be 305. The width will be 300. And the height will be 44. Now that we have this button, we can go ahead and change the title, and this title will be Search by City. And now let's go ahead and define our actions. We'll do click, and the first one we're going to do is redirect. So we want to go ahead and redirect it to the table screen, and then we'll add another session variable. We're going to save, and in this one we're going to do temporarily. Now that we already defined the first session variable by search, it will be in our user defined list, and it's right there. So search, the source value on this one will just be city. Now that we have our search by city button, this one will be a combination of select category and select city and state. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our table screen. So we'll come over to our screen list. We'll click on Table. So I went ahead and just created a blank screen here. And so we'll go ahead and add all of the information that we need. The first thing we want to do is add our data sources. So we'll click on Add Data Source. And like I said, there's actually going to be two data sources that we will be loading. The first one will be Google Nearby. And this one is going to be using our latitude and our longitude and pulling up all the businesses in our category based on the radius that we've chosen. So we'll go ahead and put our parameters in. So for latitude and longitude, remember we're getting this off of the start location, and when we do the start location, it creates additional system values, current location latitude, and then it also creates a current location longitude. There's the longitude. Now the radius will be off of a session variable. Remember, we defined these in the first video when we were talking about pickers. And this one's going to be radius. And then our category will be another session variable. And that's going to be category. We'll hit execute. And these are our output parameters. And again, if you're wondering how we got this, take a look at our video on third-party APIs, and it'll walk you through how to set up a third-party API. I've already set this one up to use the Google Places, so we'll go ahead and click Save. Now let's go ahead and add our second data source. And we'll go down and we're going to choose Google City. And this API is designed to use the category and a specific city. So for city, we'll go ahead and choose session. And we're going to go down and we're going to choose a location. Category will again be session. And we'll go down and choose category again. Hit execute. And save. Now the first thing we want to do is go ahead and add a button so that we can get back from the table back to our search criteria. So we'll click and we'll drag a button over. For the position, we're going to choose 10, 10, and the width will be 50, and 44 is fine. And then we're going to call this button, the object ID button, back, just so that we know where it is. Now we can go ahead and define the action. So if we click, action defined will be back, and our screen will be picker. Now let's go ahead and change the title. So instead of button, we're just going to type in back. The normal title color, we're going to change it to say blue. And the background, we're going to remove the background color so that it's kind of a transparent button. Now we want to go ahead and add our table view. So the way we do that is we'll come up here and we'll type in table. There's our table view, and we'll click and we'll drag it over. Now we can go ahead and set the coordinates of our table view. So we'll do 0, 50, 320, and the height will be 430. Now that we have our table view, let's go ahead and take a look at our table cells and add our controls to the table cells. So we'll click on our object tree and we'll expand the view of the table view, and then we'll get down to this table cell. Now we want to go ahead and add our controls, and we're going to add a couple of controls. The first control we're going to add is a label. Now we can go ahead and set the coordinates for the label, and for the X position we'll do 10, Y position we'll do 5, the width will be 240, and the height we're just going to leave it at 20. And for the object ID, we're going to call it label name, because this is going to be the name of the business. So for the key name to data, we're just going to come down here and we're going to choose name. Now we can go ahead and add our second label. So we'll drag that over, and we'll go ahead and set the coordinates for this one as well. So the X position we'll leave it 10, the Y position, so we'll make it 25, the width will be 240, and the height will be 20. So the next thing we want to do is add the ability for a user to select this business as a favorite. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to drag another button over and place it in the cell. And we're going to go ahead and position this button. And we're going to say it's going to be at 214, 0, 106, and the height will actually be 50, because what we're going to do is we're going to change the cell size to 50 as well. This one we're going to call button favorite. And basically what this will allow us to do is this will allow us to, first I'm going to show you how to use this button to have a single selection, but then if a user wanted to go through and mark multiple businesses as favorite at the same time, I'm going to show you how to do a multiple selection as well using this button. The first thing we need to do is, if we're going to do the multiple selection, we have to make it a toggle button. So we're going to choose is toggle. The key name to data, we're going to type in other, and we're going to assign it a session variable that is going to be called favorite. So now let's go ahead and assign it the background pictures. So we're going to scroll down to the bottom. We're going to remove the background color. We're going to remove the button title, and we're going to assign it a background image. So the normal background image, you can see is I have it loaded right here. And now we'll change the button state to selected, and we'll assign the selected background image as well, which will be this one. Now, to show you how the single selection and the multi-selection works, I want to go ahead and add an additional label here at the top. And what this label will do is we're going to use this label just to show you how the values are assigned. This is not necessary for a project because you can always use the session values, but we're going to use the session value and this label just to show you how it actually works. Now, this label, now that we have it added, we can go ahead and set the coordinates, and this one will be 60, 20, the width will be 200, and the height will be 20. And we'll go ahead and name this label favorites. And we're going to set the key name to data. We're going to do other. And we're going to type in the session value favorites. So now let's go back to the favorites button. And we'll go ahead and assign it an action. So when this button is clicked, so now what we want to do is change the object properties of the label that we just added. So we're going to click on label favorites, save. And the value we're going to change, and we're going to do session, other, and we're going to type in favorites. And we'll click save. Now let's go up to the table cell, and we'll make some configurations here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to change the height to 50. So the objects that are within a table cell are configured a little bit differently at runtime than objects that are not within a table cell or grid cell. For example, label favorite, if I wanted to change this color at runtime based on some sort of criteria, then what I would do is just click on main view and tell it when main view loads to go ahead and change that color. Now, when objects are within a table cell, they operate a little bit differently. And so it's not on main view load, it's actually going to be on table cell load. So for example, if we click on actions for table cell, then when it loads, then I can configure the objects that are within that table cell. For example, let's say I wanted to change the font color of any business that was open. So what I could do is select the object. So in this case, it will be label name. And I want to change the text color. And let's say I just want to change it to red. And I only want to do this if the business is open, so I'll click on conditions, add a condition, and it's going to be if the response from the API, and it's going to be open now, equals 1. And we'll click save. So if that open now returns a 1, which means that it's open, then the label name of the business or the name of the business will be red. So now let's go ahead and finish configuring the single selection and the multi-selection. So we'll click on table view. Now, the first thing we want to do is just to provide more style is the separator style. We'll go ahead and choose single line. And now we'll just scroll down to the bottom until you get down to the single selection view ID. So in this case, we're going to choose the favorite button and the multiple selection session key. We're going to set it to favorite. So that's the session variable that we've been using. And the selection key, we just want to pass it the name. So we'll type in name. So the last thing we need to do is go ahead and have our APIs called when the screen is loaded. So the way we do that is we'll click on main view, we'll click on actions and load. And remember, there's two APIs that we can call. So the first one, we want to go ahead and type in API. And we're going to do Google Nearby. So we only want to do this when the session variable that is search equals distance. Now we'll go ahead and clone that case. And we'll click on case 2. And instead of Google Nearby, we'll do Google City. And then we'll change the condition from distance to city and click save. So now let's take a look at it in the app. Okay, so I've downloaded the project and we'll go ahead and take a look at it. So the first thing is we'll select category and we'll go down and we'll choose restaurants, and then the distance we'll go ahead and choose 6,000 meters, click done, and then we'll search by distance. So there you go. Those are the closest businesses to my location within 6,000 meters. And you can see anything in red is currently open and anything in black is currently not open. And if we go ahead and choose as a favorite Chick-fil-A, I love Chick-fil-A, you can see that it changes the color and it adds the Chick-fil-A up to the label for our favorites. And when we choose one, it unhighlights the previous one and highlights this one because, again, we're in single selection. So how do we do multiple selections and save those to a database via API? So now that we're back in the Configure.IT platform, to change from a single selection to a multiple selection is really simple. What we need to do is come over here and click on Tableview, and now we'll scroll down. Single selection view ID, we'll remove that. And multiple selection view ID, we'll add that. And basically we're going to change it back to button favorite. And click save. So now we're in multiple selection mode. So now that we can select multiple businesses, how do we add those businesses to a database so that we can recall them later? So the first thing we need to do is open up the back end, and we need to add a table. So we'll come over here to SQL database. So we'll click on add new. The table name will be favorites. The category, we'll just put it in miscellaneous, and we really only need just a couple of fields, but we'll click add. The first field we're going to do is the Google ID, and let's say the second field will be date added, and then don't worry about the rest of them. So we'll click save and close. And there you go. There's our fields that we need. Now we need to go ahead and define the API. So we'll click on add new. And the API will be add favorites. The API category will be miscellaneous. And the input parameter will be Google ID. Now, because we're doing a multiple selection, it's going to have multiple values, so we need to change the type to, instead of a value, to an array string, and it's going to be comma separated. So we'll go ahead and click on next. Now, again, because there's multiple values, we want it to loop through and insert each value into our table. So the first thing we need to do is add a begin loop. And we're going to do Google ID. And we'll click save. Now we need to do a query, and we'll just change this to insert favorite, and the query type will be insert. The main table will be favorites, and we'll click next. Now we want to add the Google ID and the date added, and the parameter for the Google ID will be Google ID, and the date added we're going to do a check, and then we'll just do now, and so that'll add the current date and time. So we'll click save, and then we'll add the end loop, and we'll just choose the start loop to end it. Click save, and then we'll add our finish block. We'll just do 200 and click save. Now we can test this API by going up, and we'll refresh, and Google ID will do 1, 2 because they're comma separated values. Hit debug, and you can see that they were inserted, and we can verify this by closing this, and we'll come back over to our SQLite database, and we'll click on view data in our favorites, and we should see 2 records. And there they are, 1 and 2. So now what we need to do is go back and add a button to our screen to fire this API. So we'll do that. We'll come over here and we'll go to our object tree, or I'm sorry, our control list, and then we'll come down here and drag a button over. Now we can go ahead and set our coordinates. We'll change this to 230. The Y position will be 10. The width will be 50, and the height will be 44. The object ID will change to button, add, and then we'll come down and change the title to add fave. Now before we can define the action, we need to add the data source. So we'll come up to data sources, add data source, and we're going to choose the API that we just created. So add favorites, and it's looking for the Google ID, and again, so that's going to be we could do either the session variable favorite, or we can just do the form object, and in this case we'll go ahead and do the form object, and that's going to be the label favorite. So we'll click save and execute. Now we can click save again. So now that we have our data source loaded, we can come back and click on the add favorite button, click on actions, click, and now we want to trigger an API call and add favorites and click save. So now let's take a look at how it looks in the app. So I've refreshed the screen, and now that we have the multiple selection, you can see that at the top that multiple locations are selected, and they're all separated by a comma, and then I can select add favorite, and now I've added those as a favorite, and we can verify this again by going back and refreshing our table. So here's our table. We'll click on refresh, and you can see that we have 3 additional records, and here is the Google ID that is being passed. And that's how you use a table view with multiple selection. Want to learn more? Visit our Help Center for additional tutorials, our Support Center, and our online community, where our support team will assist you. Keep configuring.